Hey, welcome back to Existence. My name is Evan, and it's me having conversations on love, death, consciousness, psychedelics, philosophy, and existence itself, all as it relates to what it means to pursue a life well lived. Today, I am talking with John Emberson. He is my best friend that I've known for over a decade now, and I wanted to bring one of the many informal conversations we have onto this show. I hope to have him on more regularly, and this is actually his second time on the podcast. So if you'd like to hear more, it can be found in episode 4, Where is Contentment, linked in the show notes. But today, we discuss spirituality, peace, morality, kindness and its influence, passion and respect, the importance of having perspective, the role of music, and other topics. Hope you enjoy the episode, and thanks for listening. And we're live. Welcome back to the Evan Liel podcast. This is John Emberson. John, how are you doing today?
Feels weird to have a million viewers looking at me right now and listening to me, but
Yeah, in due time, my friend. Cool. So I just want to have a conversation. We'll see where it goes. I could pick a random question. I'm going to pick a random question. And we're going to see where that takes us, all right?
Okay.
All right. You already know my questions, bro. You know how.
I already know it. I know where we're going.
This podcast is about
drugs.
It's about drugs, dude. It's about life, bro. It's about life.
But really, it's about drugs.
But really, it's about drugs. How to do drugs. What are the best drugs to do?
Yeah.
Where should you do them? And with whom should you do them? Cool. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about growth? I'll give you some options and you can tell me.
Okay.
You want to talk about relationships, love, life, mental health, art, spirituality, death, or philosophy?
Spirituality.
Well, you got to say the word right if you're gonna talk about it. All right, and the show begins. Okay, here's a good one. In what way would you describe your personal belief system?
In which way would I describe?
Wow. You're like, dude, it's like 12 in the afternoon right now. I don't know what to be thinking about this.
Non-existent. No. I don't know. I feel like the one thing I will say about it is I feel like, well, I mean, this goes with anything, but I feel like as you get older, it becomes more intriguing. Like, basically what I'm saying is I feel like it changes every year of like how I think about like my own spirituality for like anything, I guess. Like, because when you're born and raised like a certain way, I feel like you just believe whatever your parents say.
Yeah.
And then like you get to a point where you're age where you start like actually questioning all those things, and then you're like, oh. And then you get upset because you find out things that your parents didn't tell you, or you like do your own research and you get upset, and then you're like mad about all these things. And like I feel like now that I'm getting older, I'm just like I understand why people do it. Like I understand why people have beliefs in these, certain things. Because like if not, like what else do we have? And
yeah.
I think if I describe my own, it's just constantly changing. It's always every year I just think about things differently as far as like what this all means, and like if there's something else that I could believe in that's not physically here,
Yeah. Would you say you have a foundation for the thinking about your belief system, or is everything up for evaluation or criticism or change?
I think it's just for everybody. It's how you interpret it. Everybody interprets it differently. So I don't think it's necessarily like something that everybody has to agree on, or like that like I have to come to some like conclusion of like what that means for me myself, because I'm constantly trying to understand and like gain information about whatever type of, you know, whatever type of event is happening, or some events are happening. It's the way I interpret it. And I think that just changes over time. I don't think there's any like solid ground, at least for right now. There's no solid ground for me to be like, oh, well, this is what I believe in. And like, I start from there. It's just like constantly ideas are running through my head. And I'm like, I wonder if this is like that, or I don't know. I think,
Yeah.
like I said, I think the biggest thing I could say about that is there's not really any foundation. It's just more of like learning and gaining experience over the years, and like kind of like, and just trusting my own interpretation of those aspects.
Yeah. Are you searching for a foundation?
I don't know if I'm necessarily searching. Like, are you saying if I'm searching for a foundation for spirituality, or
Yeah.
like just
Well, how would you define spirituality? And I think it's a question that a lot of people have many different definitions for, you know?
I would say it's something that's it's something that you believe in that's not physical. There's nothing that you can like physically touch, see, or smell, or whatever. You can't use your senses. It's something that like comes from like within you, or from outside of you, if that's the case too. It's something that you have to kind of like, you have to trust in, or have, you know, faith in. I think
Yeah.
that's the difference. It's something that you can't physically comprehend. It's more of like a internal belief.
Yeah. What do you, I mean, so I know you're a moral person. You're somebody who acts within the bounds of what you think is ethically okay and not okay. What do you base your foundations in there for your own ethics, or your own morality?
I mean, obviously, the huge part of it is how you're raised. Obviously, I was, you know, you already know this about both of us, but we were raised very fortunate, especially with good, loving families, good, loving moms, and I think she taught me a lot of things of like how I have certain, you know, moral beliefs of like what's right and what's wrong, but also like you can't take away that you just grow and you learn. And like I said, everybody's different. Everybody interprets these things differently. And I just interpret it in a way that like like I would say most people, not everybody, most people would agree it's the moral way of looking at things, or the right way of looking at things, as far as like doing right or wrong. But, you know, that comes from, I think a big part of it comes from how you were raised. Not all of it, obviously. There's people that are raised in like terrible situations, and then they like, you know, like I said, I think it's equal parts of how you were raised and equal parts of how you interpret and how you grow as you get older, of like what your moral beliefs are.
Yeah.
Because you could be raised, you know, by the, you know, quote unquote best family in the world, the best parents that have the best like parenting techniques, and there's kids that still turn out upside down and are like going downhill real fast. That's because it's the type of person that they interpret life and they just can't handle certain things, and obviously certain mental issues and stuff like that. So it's you kind of rely on like how you are as a person, but you're also reliant of like where you were raised too. I think that's a big part of it. That's what I would
Yeah.
say in my experience. I think I would be I would be definitely different if I wasn't raised by the same family, or like raised the same way as I did now. I think I'd be different. I wouldn't say like drastically different, but I think I would be different.
Yeah, totally. I mean, but you know, when I think about this, I think, you know, the way you're raised is important, but the way you interpret the world around you ethically and morally depends on how you were raised as well. Because nobody, you know, you can't escape your history, you can't escape the past, you can't escape how you were brought up with a certain worldview, and that shapes everything that you come to think moving forward. And I think that's why I think morality is such an interest of mine, is because there's such gray area in life as well. And there's so many areas in which we think about things that may be morally right or morally wrong from the standpoint that we could only view it from, which is our own subjective view of the world. But we don't necessarily, we don't know. There's like intuitions that we have, but those intuitions are based on our history, and they're based on societal standards that we have for each other and we hold other people to. And so, I mean, there's a whole concept of moral relativism, which is the idea that morality is really based within, it's subjective. Morality is subjective, and there's a certain type of morality that can be applied in one position or one culture, but it doesn't apply within another culture. And I think that's kind of a dangerous way of thinking.
Yeah,
because,
but I feel like the thing that I would say against that argument is that it does depend. It definitely has a huge influence of like how you're raised and the area you're raised. And like you said, like what you just said is that one community can have a completely different aspect of like morality and what's right or wrong versus another community, But I feel like and this definitely opened our eyes once we started traveling. Is like, even if there is like a language barrier, like everybody, like I found that most people that I've met just around the world, like there's like a general senses of the basics that everybody wants. It's like they want to have a safe home with good earning, like a healthy family that they get to see as much as possible, and they just want to be friendly towards others. I think that was like the general thing, and I think that comes back to like no matter where you're raised, or like religious wise, or community wise, or poverty wise, like whatever aspect you have, like there's a general staple of like what everybody kind of just would like in life, like if it all boiled down to it. And I think we can all kind of relate to that. We can all like be like, yeah, I want the same things too, And I think that no matter, even if like one person's like, I'm this way, and the other person's like, I'm the complete other way, but it's like, oh, we can still agree on these like basic things that we want in life. And I think that kind of shows that we are influenced by how we're raised, but also, like I think, like I said, as you get older, you start interpreting things, and I think we all come to a basic conclusion of like what we really want in this life, or like what we're searching for, what we rely on,
Yeah. What do you think it is that we're searching for?
Like I said, I really, in my head, and I know it gets complicated, but I think when you boil it really down to it, is just you want to live a good life with family that's close, make an honest living, and have friends and family that are healthy and close by, and just live a long life to be with others. I think that boils down to those basic aspects. Obviously, we want other things, but I think when you start looking at the like, the most important things, top of the list things, we all have like, I would say like our top fives are all pretty relatively close to each other. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing, like, right, like if you ask someone if your house is burning down, right? If your house is burning down, if you ask most people, like, if your house is burning down, what are the top 5 things that you would like take, And I think all of our answers would be pretty close to each other. It's like, obviously everybody in the household, everybody that's living, like probably pets or whatever, pictures, or, what is the word? Memorabilia stuff of like families, old tapes or whatever. Like I think it would be a very similar thing. And like, my point is like, if you boiled it down for everybody, what would be the top 5 things that you would want in your life?
Mm-hmm.
I think we'd be pretty close. And I think, like I said, I think a big part of that would be family, health, living a long life, making an honest earning, not to struggle, obviously, and peace. I think just like being at peace.
Yeah. Peace is a tough one to find because there's so many fluctuations within
But
the
that's what I'm
world.
saying. I don't think anybody would say that they like need that per se. But I think if you ask people, that's what they would want. You know, that's what they would
Yeah.
want in life, is to
Well, I
have
don't know.
that
Yeah, I mean, I don't
peace
know.
of mind.
People need peace. You know, people need. I think that's. I mean, that's what it is. That's what everyone's fighting for is peace. You see protests through the decades, through the years. Everyone's just looking for peace. People just
I always
want
find that
people to stop.
oxymoron though is fighting for peace. Is that kind of funny? I always thought that was such an oxymoron.
It is. I haven't thought about that. Fighting for peace.
Yeah. How about
it's
not fight for peace? Just wanting peace.
Just, how about we don't? Hey, how about we don't even fight? How about we just want?
No fighting. Just let's keep this civil.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's funny because Dorsey and I, my partner, were watching a movie and by Michelangelo Antonioni called Blow Up. And it's basically kind of a social criticism on what a lot of the field of art, kind of like like artists and how they can see and perceive the world and kind of the bubble they get into, and applied generally across society. And there's this scene where there's these like protesters. It's like it focuses on the protagonist, like a famous photographer, but then there's these protesters in one of the scenes about fighting for to end war and like to end the nuclear bomb during like the 60s. And it's like such a small blimp on that whole movie, and it's like such an important piece though in the world. Like when you see that, we discussed it after the movie, because in this world of this one photographer who was just in his own head and just completely subsumed by his own idea of what he wants society to be or what he thinks of in his own world, this small little blimp of like peace and the extinction of the human race is like such a small blimp on his radar. And it's portrayed as such a small blimp because in the movie it's just like this small little incident that happens and he doesn't even think twice about. But it's such a big and powerful point when you contextualize it broadly, and how like we can get so consumed in our own head, our own world, without thinking enough about how like this world is just constantly in some sort of state of fighting, of aggression, and all of these different worries and these different huge things like the extermination of the human race by our own cause, by our own hand, and we could totally forget about it, and we're just but at the end of the day, like there's not going to be anything left to live if we don't have some semblance of peace between us, And I mean, peace is it doesn't even have to just be applied in that way. I mean, peace can be just within your own life, just within your own mental state, within your own mental health, trying to be a peaceful person and to remain calm and tranquil and to not let the vicissitudes of life get to you, because there's so many ways in which there are so many things going on, and it's hard to just find the equanimity among it all,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is like when we're talking about peace, it's like realistically that it's not that it's non-existent, but like it's pretty close, because like I said, everybody's different. Everybody reacts differently, and it's like we can watch like a YouTube video, right, of a civil conversation between two people that are on opposing sides, and everybody agrees, like in the comments, and when you watch it, you're like, oh, this is how it should be. This is how a debate should be, and everybody like loves it. They're like, oh, like if there's any topic that people should talk about, this is how you should go about it. Is like listening and then counter arguing, but doing it in peace and respectfully. But that's proven over time that like it's not always going to be that way. There's going to be people that react to certain things that you say that are going to blow up and be angry and aggressive, and they're going to see red versus, when when they say these things or when they go into these topics, before that happens, they don't have the mindset of going into these rages. It's just a reaction that they have because it's how they perceive things. They're passionate about what they're talking about. And I think that's important to know, is that like people are going to react to certain things that you say, no matter how respectfully you go about it or how you talk about it. Like obviously there's ways to talk to people, to try to be understanding and to try to come from a peaceful aspect. But I think it's just the best thing we could do is for our own abilities to do it in the best way you can to be peaceful, of whatever that means. Even if that means for you yelling and getting angry, it's having the start of the conversation to try to be the best that you could be, of like not reacting to what things people say. But like I said, it's impossible to ask people to not react in that way, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think reaction and like the word passion, I've been thinking about often lately. Passion can be it can be such a good thing. I think life without passion, life without like having an emotional vigor towards something is an important aspect in pursuing anything and trying to get something done and trying to move forward in some way. And yeah, I do think it's difficult though when you have, I try myself personally to remain as calm and collected as I can in situations, even when those situations are, hurt my ego and hurt my sense of self. And I have to try my best to recognize that and then put my ego aside for a second and think critically and to like self-reflect. But I'm imperfect as well, and that doesn't always happen, and I get passionate about things, but I think always maintaining my level of not only respect for the other person and love for the other person, but respect and love for my own self, and trying to do that in the best way possible to set an example for myself and for others to kind of think in a way that doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a malicious argument. It can be a civil discussion, and passion can be a part of it. But it doesn't have to be, me against you. It's us fighting for the same thing, but from two different sides. And the same thing is like more love, more respect for ourselves and whatever the conversation is about. Yeah. But it's difficult.
I think what you could like say from what you're talking about is like, you can't change of how people are going to react to what you say. You can't change that, because that's for them to perceive and for them to react. But you can change of how you go about talking about certain things. It's how you go about, like I said, as peacefully as you can about talking about something. I think if you start with that, even if it turns sideways or whatever, it's coming with the intent is what we all need to have, coming with the intent of trying to be peaceful, trying to have a point to talk about where you can kind of see both sides, versus just coming at it passionately, which is, like you said, it is important, but coming from a respectful side, and not to let your passion be reactive to what they say in a like non-peaceful manner, so what is it that you think hinders people, especially now? I think that's the thing, is our attention is so divided, and we have such polarization between, or at least perceived polarization within the online space and news and all that. Like, what is it that you think that hinders our ability to see others from a respectful, like coming at conversations from a more respectful and loving place? I think a lot of people have expectations or perceptions before they even get into these conversations. I think that's a big one too, is like, we perceive certain people's beliefs or certain beliefs that people believe in, and you kind of generalize the what's the word, the typical viewing of that person before you even go into this conversation. So I think expectations kill. You go into it thinking like, this dude believes in this, and how could he ever, and you go into it with passion because you're like, how could you ever? And it's like, whoa, I never claimed that, I believe in it, and these things that I do believe in, it's because of this, and like you explain yourself. So I think going into it, and this was with everything, obviously with an open mind and not having expectations of what particularly this person, believes in, or the accusations that could be pointed towards them of like why they believe in these things, and just simply hearing them out and listening to what they have to say. I think that's the downfall of it, is just going into conversations even beforehand, having these expectations of like what they're going to say and what they believe in is a killer of any conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The expectation for other people, because I think a lot of things, I find especially online, and I don't online because everything's online, but when we see others, especially political views, if you think one thing, you're automatically you're automatically segregated into a category of like, this is this person, and now this person must believe, if they believe this one thing, all these other things,
exactly,
and then all those other things you could very well not have any opinion on, or the opposite opinion on, and that's such a dangerous game to play, especially when you're going into conversations with people that you had no idea who they are, what their background is.
Yeah.
Or even if you do, like, people are thinking evolving beings. We don't know exactly how people are, how you're going to influence people, and how people are influenced, and how they've been influenced. And, I think this is important when I talk to a lot of my friends who I knew from the military, who are either, they're perceived to be like, they have some right-wing opinions, but they also have like left-wing opinions. But the problem is, like, we're categorizing people into like left or right, and when really we're all evolving thinking beings. And I think they have opinions, and it's fine, but we have to talk about it. We need to discuss things not from a side, but from a center where we can come at these types of conversations with an intent to kind of move forward, and not just be blockaded by this barrier between us,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what people need to have is, we need to have the ability to go into things knowing there's a possibility that we are wrong. And I think no one has that. Everybody has their opinions, and they believe very strongly about these opinions. And it's just silly when you take a second to think about it. You're like, I barely know anything, really. Like, I perceive things, and I can gather my own information to like understand things. But like, if you really boil it down to like all the thoughts and beliefs that I have in my head, is that right for everybody else to think the same way? No, it's ridiculous. It's the absurd thought to even think that, to think that everybody should think the way that you think. And if that was the case, if everybody agreed with what you said, that would be a horrible world to live in, because there would be no subjectiveness on anything. Everything would just be neutral. There would be no original thoughts. There would be no original ideas. There'd be no passion in things. And I think that's another thing too, is there's a beauty part of why there's so many different opinions out there, and why there's so many like crazy ideas. It's because everybody perceives things so differently. And like you said, we're killed by the aspect of like setting people in certain groups, and like being like, okay, you're this group now. And it's like, well, not necessarily. Just because I believe in this one aspect doesn't mean I don't think about everything else, and I'm still like considering these other ideas. Yeah, I'm just evolving and trying to gather this information. And I think, like I say, come back to what I said, is going into life knowing that you could be wrong constantly is very helpful, because that keeps you having a way, way, way more of an open mind into different ideas and aspects that come into your life of that, like, of how you perceive things and like what you believe in. And I think if you just constantly have one set of rules that you stay with for the rest of your life, you're not growing at all. There's no growth there. The world is constantly evolving. There's always going to be new things popping up, and it's our ability to adapt those things that make things better and stronger, and make you a better person.
Yeah, totally. It's something I know you and I value a lot, but the problem is also I try my absolute best to remind myself that I'm full of bullshit all the time, and we all are, and it's okay. Like, I'm full of bullshit. Yeah. You're full of bullshit. Yep. The guy across the street, the person listening to this, is full of bullshit, and that's fine. Yeah. Because it's never going to be completely out of us. But
isn't that the human error? Like, if we all agree to that, like, we could sympathize for each other. Where, like, if you say something, you hear it all the time, right? You're like, you know what? You're right. I didn't do enough research in that aspect, and like, I will look further. Like, I apologize for when I said. You're like, wow, like, good for that guy. You always say that. You're always like looking. You're like, oh, good for that person. They kind of perceived it. They realized they were wrong, and they admitted to it. It's like, we can all understand that because we can all relate to it, and I think that's an important aspect to realize.
Well, yeah, but, I think at the same time, it's difficult when you're trying to convince people that it's difficult. I think this is the problem I run into, is when I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody, and I'm sure we've all been there, where it's hard to confront their own ego about what they know, or it's hard to suspend their ego for a second to kind of realize whether or not they might be wrong on something. And it's not, I'm not trying to prove them wrong. I'm just trying to maybe introduce a new way of thinking. And it's difficult because I feel it too. And when somebody says something about something that I have an opinion about, or I have some sort of belief about, it's hard. And it's hard for me to, like, inwardly look and set aside that sense of self and that ego, and to say, you know what, maybe I should be looking at this from a different perspective. And I think that this speaks a lot to a conversation, Dorsey and I were having, that we were talking about, not to get into the details, but she was calling me out on my bullshit, and I was just actually really happy that she did, because she was telling me, like, maybe, you're doing this one thing, and I see it a different way, and I didn't mean it like maliciously at all. I didn't mean like I'm trying to prove her right. I'm not trying. I try to be as humble as I can and realize that I do things all the time that are messed up. But it's important to have, my point being, it's important to have people in your life that can call you out on your BS, and to show you that, to show you that you can, they're not trying to hurt you, but you can trust them. But maybe you should look at it from a different way, because if not, we're always just in our head. And this is something I always go back to, is like, we're always just in our head, cycling through the same thoughts. And if we never have any outside influences, we're constantly just moving forward, and we're stuck in the loop of our own direction that we're setting for ourselves. And that's a dangerous game to play. And, and you can get stuck in the bubble of everyone else setting the path for you, when you're only paying attention to one news cycle, or you're only paying attention to one stream of thought, when you're only talking to one type of person, when you only have friends within this group, and it's difficult, but there, and also there's a point there being that there's so much information to consume, where what do you know is right, what do you know is wrong, and there's a whole discussion to be had and all that as well.
No, I think someone calling out, but I think it kind of goes back to what I said, is like, is you can't change how people perceive or react to what you say, but like you said, coming off in the best of your ability to become, like, to be not evasive, and like to be as understanding as you can be, is the do that to your best ability. And it's also, I think, what you're talking about too. It's the best of your ability too for them to tell you how they reacted to that, how they perceived that. Even if you didn't come off in a certain way, they're like, well, no, because the way you say that made me feel this. And you're like, well, no, that's not what I meant by it. It's like, it doesn't matter what you came off as. It's like, that's how I perceived it. And it's important for you to try to understand that and, try to come to some middle ground of like, well, obviously I didn't mean that, but I am sorry. And I understand why you saw it that way. And I will be better about, asking in a different way or talking about that in a different way, But like I said, you can't change how people react, but you can change how you go about go into the conversations, And I don't know. I think it's hard. Obviously, like I said, it's gonna be no one's gonna go into conversation perfect. Even the people that are very understanding and have very logical debates, there's still passion and heat behind some things that they say. There's always going to be.
Yeah, and it's a good thing, I would say. Sometimes.
And I also about what you said too is like when you talk to certain people and you're just like, you could tell that their like ego is like getting a part of like in the way masking in the way of like for them trying to understand what you're trying to say. And like I said, you have no power over that. Like that's their own obstacle to overcome. And for all you know, there's those conversations you can have those people where you're like, I didn't get anything through to them. Like they didn't listen to a single word they said. It's not necessarily true. They could have went home that night, really thought about it, and they're like, well, he did have some points. Or they could have went home and be like, screw that guy. Like, I had nothing good to say, But you never know, and there's nothing you can change about that, I think it's being at peace of like, if that's a conversation you have, like, you talk to them, you did your best of like trying to communicate to them, and if it didn't go well, there's no reason to hang up on it. There's no reason to be like, well, what did I say wrong? Like, obviously, there's time to reflect about it. If there was something that you got angry about and you lashed out, then be like, I should have done that or whatever. But if it was just like talking to a wall and you're like, well, what are the other things you could say? It's totally possible there's nothing that you could have said that got through them. There's just people out there like that. Or it's like I said, it maybe didn't initially seem like anything got through to them, but maybe they thought about it later at night. That they thought about it and they're like, oh yeah, it happens all the time. People. You grow from certain experiences and you don't necessarily acknowledge the change that's happening in front of you until you do it in your own time, if that makes sense, Like, perfect example is when I was religious, Chase constantly came up to me and started asking me the questions and everything, and I'm like, whoa, well, I can't believe you're asking these things, like, how dare you, And later at night, I would sit down in my bedroom and start thinking about it. I'm like, well, what is the answer to that thing? I don't even know. Like,
Yeah.
So it's like, I did that on my own time. I didn't like acknowledge that he was like really changing me. I didn't like go up to him at the time when he was asking the question and be like, yeah, that's a good question. No, I was like angry, And then obviously eventually down the line, you get to the point where you're like, no, those were good questions. Thank you for asking me those things. Like, I know I never said that before, but like, I really did think about it later at night. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. It does have to change right in front of you,
Yeah, yeah. And Chase is your stepbrother for those who are listening and don't know who you are. Yeah, so, I think that brings up a good point in the influence you have on other people without ever realizing that you might actually impact somebody's life dramatically.
Yeah,
I think it's a good point because you could have a heated argument with somebody and you feel, like you said, nothing is getting through. You're talking to a brick wall, and then they go back home and maybe years later they like remember that argument they had because some other circumstance led them to begin to think about it again, and it was all started with that inkling of you expressing something to them, which made them start the thought process to begin with. And It's important. And, and this applies, in many ways, and it doesn't, it applies to opinions, but it also applies to just how you interact with people and just your influence on other people's lives without you ever knowing. You could give somebody a smile or just, like do something stupid and funny and try to make somebody's laugh, but it makes their whole day or makes, and it really makes an impact to them because they think about life differently because, you're just trying to do good and whatever.
Yep.
And it's important to kind of reflect on that because every day you're making actions. Every day you're choosing to do something in the world. And it's something I'm always trying to remind myself, especially recently, with a lot of, just me trying to deal with like mental health stuff, because every day you're going out and you're influencing the world in some way, and you're talking to people, and you're expressing yourself to others. And I want to be the person that does it in the most kind and loving way possible, because that influences everyone else. They influence you just as much as you're influencing them. When you have a conversation with somebody that just seems to be treating you without any respect and without any, kindness, like, sure, maybe, you have to take into account what they've gone through and who's influenced their day and who've influenced their life. And, you don't want to be the person that takes that and this continues that cycle.
Yeah. But, I think that kind of brings up a point too, is like Sadie and I, and like I said, we don't have to get on this topic, but like Sadie's just like, why not treat everyone just in case nicely? And I was like, I couldn't agree more. But it's that you can take that aspect on anything. It's like, like she had a run-in the other day where like she accidentally cut some guy off, and he was like super angry with her, and like followed her all the way to the parking of a grocery store, and like she wouldn't get out of her car because he was like waiting behind her. And it's like, that's not okay. Like, that's not okay that guy did that. That's like, that is like not, that's scary. It's a scary situation for Sadie to be in. But it's also like, it's totally possible that guy had a horrible day. It's totally possible that like he got called that his wife got cancer or something like that, and then like Sadie pulled out in front of him, and he's like, "That's it," you know what I mean? And it's like, I think, basically what I'm trying to say is like going about of like just trying to be respectful as you can, even if people are being angry towards you or being malicious or anything that's not positive. It doesn't hurt for you to be kind to that person. It doesn't hurt for you to be, don't come in conclusions that it's like, oh my God, this person's that, this person's this, and treating them back in a poor manner. Obviously, if it's like life and death, like there's different situations, obviously, but like I think if we can come about it to be understanding and kind, it impacts it in the best way possible, It's you see like road rage, it's like if it's two people that are road raging, they're end up like fighting each other in the middle of the streets. But if one guy's road raging and the other guy is like understanding, he's like, oh, like, I'm sorry I didn't see you, like no problems here, I don't want to fight, like it just disperses really quickly versus two people that are hot-headed and end up like punching each other. It's like there's no resolve between situations like that. It's coming into an aspect of like, no matter what's happening, try to just be kind and thoughtful and understanding in any situation.
Yeah. I think when you say that sort of thing, and obviously, you should be kind. Nothing gets solved by being more aggressive to the person that's aggressive back. It's like, no, I'm right.
There's no progress.
No. It's like,
there's no progress.
It's so stupid because it's like such a primitive thing, and be like,
it is
I'm
primitive.
right, you're wrong, I'm right. And it's just like, what are you accomplishing there? You're both just yelling at each other for no reason. And then that's how, if you're a person who's in charge of a country, that's how wars get started. And it's such a stupid, primitive way of thinking. And it's like, I just want to, like, sometimes, like, I think I see, like with the war going on in Ukraine or, other countries, anytime, like, you're just like, stop. Like, if everyone just like stopped, stopped for a second and thought about the larger picture and thought about like how we're like monkeys yelling at each other all the time. Like, we don't want this. Nobody wants this. Stop being so immature. It's like, I honestly view this as immaturity in so many people where like, no, this is my land. I want more land. This is your land. No, it's like, it's so dumb. And if we just stopped and were adults for 3 seconds and reflected on this whole situation of life and how insane this is, and that, it doesn't matter. Like, if you like, don't we all just want to live peacefully and get along? Isn't that ultimately what we want to do? Do you think having more land is more important to you now? Like, does that solve the world's problems? It's so stupid. It's so stupid. And it's so immature. And I think about all these leaders of countries that are just so immature and just need to be like, honestly, like in my head, I'm like, I just want to shake them and be like, look for a second.
Yeah.
At the bigger picture of things.
Well, yeah. And obviously not to like be on the other side of it, but to see the perspective is like, and not even, let's boil it down to a smaller aspect. It's like, there's so many people that are in their own heads. And, you know, you and I fall guilty of this sometimes too. It's just like, some people are just living their life to like the next thing, right? They're just like, they're on this one way path of just like, oh, I can't wait to get like another job. I hate my job and like, I just need to leave and get another one. And it's like you can tell that person's miserable, you know? And it's like, why couldn't we expand that on a bigger aspect of like these world leaders that are like, I need to be the best leader in the world. And to prove that, I need to show how powerful I am. And like, they're just constantly stuck in this headspace of like, just straight ahead. Like what can they do to be the next big thing? What's the next thing that they could do that could be, that they can be known world round of like, oh my God, he did this. Like how does he do that? They're just stuck in this one-way trail of like not seeing the rest of the world and everybody else that's living in it. And they're just stuck in their own head of like what their own goals and aspirations are. And they're not realizing the destruction that's happening around them. It's like, you can boil that down to an average person. And then you can also ramp it up to like, you know, freaking our world leaders that are doing some crazy shit. It's like, they're stuck in this mindset and they're, like you said, you just shake them and tell them to look around. But it's like, we all felt guilty of that. It's just scary sometimes that people have these bigger motives than other people that are in power, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's any different. I think it's a direct cross between those two people, having that mindset of just being in their own world and not really looking around and not realizing like what we're living in and like all the people that it affects and like that we really need each other and we rely on each other, and they don't think about those things because they're only thinking about their own goals and aspirations of what they want to do.
Yeah. It you know, of course it's the same process because they're also humans. They're not a different type of consciousness. Like there are people too, and they are flawed as well. And, you know, just because they're in charge of a country doesn't make them morally superior or perfect. And, you know, if anything, it's just the stakes are just extremely high. Yeah. And, you know, like maybe I make a wrong decision in my life and I don't know, like lose some money or like, you know, end up at a job I don't like. But, you know, and, you know, obviously there's bigger consequences, but there's also massive consequences to somebody ruling a country and decides to invade another country and kill women and children and everybody else, you know, like, so it's crazy. But, you know, I think, like you said, it boils down to also just not being the person who's willing to suspend their own self and to really genuinely try to put themselves into the perspective of other people. And, you know, maybe they think they're doing the right thing. Like they think they're doing the right thing for their country, for their society. But, you know, when you think broadly about the world as a whole, about what we're doing here as a species, you know, there are wrong actions to take. There are ways in which we can act, which that are bring us to a worse state of well-being, and those worse states aren't ways we want to head, you know, and if we never, like you said, get out of this headspace of ours, this turning machine that is our ego, we just constantly get stuck in that cycle, and everybody who's in that cycle stays in it, and especially when you have the bubble surrounding you. Like with world leaders who are just telling you, yeah, you're right, this is a good idea. And, you know, you never get told otherwise, or you're just trying to prove a point because you want to be known for something. And you know, obviously there are many factors. This is one, but there are many, many factors and putting just having the ability to try to see a different perspective. It's kind of what we talked about in the beginning, is just having a different perspective on things is just so dramatically important. Just really try. You won't be able to fully do it. You won't be able to fully be in somebody else's mind, but really try. Put your ego aside for a second and think about what it's like for another person and how their life has led up until this moment, just as yours has, and all the influences and all the factors and all the upbringing that they've had to deal with and all the trauma that they've had to go through. Everything leads up until this present moment. Try to put yourself in that perspective from gaining an understanding. And you do this through conversation. You do this through empathy and through kindness and love for other people. You try to do this and you build it as a muscle. It's really something that you can work on to try to suspend your own self and to put yourself into a different perspective. And it's difficult and you'll fail a lot, and just like I do and just like you do, but at least, we can try. We could try to be cognizant of it as we progress through our lives, because if not, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot as a species.
I think that's exactly what you're saying is like the scary part is, right? The scary part is it's so much easier to just stay stagnant. It's so much easier to have your own thoughts and only believe what you're thinking in your own head and not thinking about whatever that. It's way easier. It's easier to live life that way. It's easier to not succumb, and it's easier not to think about a whole other person's perspective on things. It's easier. It's just easier in life to go that route. So, but that's what's scary. It's scarier to do that. But the interesting thing, it's a lot harder to look at other people's perspectives. It's harder to be open-minded. It's harder to grow and to really like try to have a different perspective about everything. But the one thing that's a saving grace in that is there's always positivity in that. You can always, if you boil everything down in your experience and you're like, wow, I really came into that open-minded, and you're like, even if you're like, that was not for me at all, I know at the end, anybody can say that they're like, I'm glad I tried it. I'm glad that I gave it a try, just to know that, no, that wasn't my route. But like, now that I can say that, you can always find some positivity out of it. And I think that's what everybody needs to focus on, is like, if you can focus on that, there's always going to be a benefit of you trying to see other people's perspectives and trying to be kind and trying to be open-minded about things and have the ability to admit that you're wrong sometimes, is there's something that will feel better internally for you, and also seeing the positivity towards others that you're sharing too. You're like, hey, I didn't see it that way. Thank you for letting me know. I'll do my own research, but I really appreciate your perspective. You could tell that the other person now respects you. They're like, oh, thank you for listening to me. Thanks for hearing me out. And like, I appreciate this conversation or whatever. It's like, you could always pull something positive versus when you're narrow-minded and you can't think of anything else but your own actions and your own ideas on things. It's like you said, the other person's like, I talked to a wall. There's nothing that went through with them. It's like, this was unproductive, and like I said, even going to the other example of like two people fighting each other because they like are having road rage versus one person that dissolves it. It's like how much easier and how much more peaceful and respectful it is when you see that situation versus something that's aggression, and there's no good outcome of that. There's always negative outcomes when you have that perspective. And I think that's the important thing to think about, is it is easier to have these perspectives. It's easier to fall back into it. And like you said, it takes time. It takes a lot of work. You have to keep working that muscle to get better and better at it. But the thing that's motivating about it is that there's always something positive you can take out of it versus being angry and narrow-minded. You're always just constantly stuck in your own head. You'll have issues going throughout life if you're always that way. You're going to be a grumpy old man that just never sees the world in a different way. There's something positive to take out of the hard work. Yeah,
I have 2 points to that. I mean, one is that we're always constantly reacting to things. It's like we never sit down and listen. And like you said, it's like if you're always in yourself, you never sit down to listen and really try to think about what they're saying. And don't just get ready with your next response because you think they're wrong. Sit there and it's, but and this is part of my other point. It's like, it's hard because it's hard because you have to let yourself be hurt a little. You have to like,
Yeah.
you have to, and sometimes a lot where you're just like, that hurt, but maybe I should look at that in a different, maybe I should look at
Right.
that about myself. Maybe I
Right.
should reflect on that internally because, and introspectively, because maybe they said something correct that I should, maybe I'm acting some way in which I shouldn't be acting. You know, I want to be as wrong for as little amount of time as possible. And I know I'm wrong
Right.
about so many things.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it hurts to admit that, especially when
Yeah.
you're in a passionate conversation with somebody that you disagree with or that there's some sort of conflict there. But if you can do it,
Yeah.
and you can work at it, and you're not going to be
Yeah.
perfect, but if you could try to work at it
Yeah.
and resolve to be that person who tries to have an open mind and not get stuck in this cycle of your own thought, it's so beneficial. Like you said, there's so much power and there's so much motivation in it, because then you see your world open up to you in so many ways, and then you could follow a path that you had no idea was even there to begin with. You had no idea
Right.
that you could even go down that path, because that path
Right.
was completely blinded to you to begin with. And you know, that's a powerful tool in just recognizing, and that's a powerful tool with just navigating the world. And it starts with, you know, recognizing and being introspective and learning and trying new things, because
Right.
the worst thing that happens is maybe you don't disagree. Maybe you reflect on it, and maybe you really try to reflect on yourself, and you're like, no, I think I'm right in this. And but at least you challenged yourself, you know, at least you challenged yourself, and at least what you said, you thought about critically. And that's an important skill on its own. And that gives you even more confidence to continue saying and thinking what you thought before, you know, and it adapts and it molds to what you said and what other people tell you. You know, it grows even further, and you gain even more confidence in your opinions, in your ideologies, in how you move and navigate the world.
And even to opt on to that is like just having the knowledge, right? It's like, if you're a person that just only believes in your own way and you never see other perspective, versus someone that lets their guard down and goes down that rabbit hole of like, let me see their perspective. Let me see how they got to their conclusion. I'm going to go down the route. Now you have this wealth of knowledge of this other side. And like you said, even to kind of back you up, is like, now you have all this wealth of knowledge. And even if you still don't agree with that side, now you understand what perspective they're coming onto, and it makes your argument strong, not your necessarily your argument stronger, but your belief stronger, because you're like, I actually, like, now I know what they're talking about. I did my research. But it's like, with anything, this is not even just about arguments or beliefs or ideas, but just being able to have the ability to listen to others, to gain the knowledge from them, is so beneficial, no matter what is coming. Even if someone's just talking gibberish, just talking absolute, you know, bonkers, is like, you know, obviously maybe there's some situations that they're just talking gibberish, but it's like, there's certain people that are ramble, and it's like, you could probably gain something out of that conversation if you really listen to them, you know? And it's like, it really boils down to, it's just a more wealth of knowledge for yourself. Why wouldn't you take that? Why wouldn't you take that opportunity? Because as soon as you put your walls up and you're just like, no, you're wrong, you're completely shutting you off from getting the knowledge that they're trying to pass on, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah. This brings up the point of that there is, like you said, there's always something to be learned from every person, even if it's not them explicitly telling you something or them trying to get a point across to you that you really took to heart. It's reflecting on the experience that you had, and to shape the world that you see within the context of what you just experienced. And that I mean, when you start to do that more, I think it just makes you even more reflective about how you want to operate within the world, because you can see the experiences that you had, the negative ones and the good ones, the ways in which you never want to act, and the ways in which you want to act, you know, from the people that you meet and the conversations that you have and the traumas that you went through. Like, all of these experiences, you could take something from, and you could see it in a different light. And it doesn't have to be this way of thinking, oh, that was just a terrible experience and nothing good came about that. You can see it more as a, wow, like, and it's hard because there's a lot of traumas that people deal with, and there's some immense, you know, unfathomable experiences that people have endured, you know, ones that I don't, you know, want to even think about because they're so traumatic. But, you know, it's possible. There's a way to see the world in which
Yeah.
you gain something from the experience, and to understand the world in a different light, in a different way that benefits you instead of holds you back and holds you within this narrow field of view.
Right. I think it comes down to like, that's why the expression of like listen to your elders. It's like, because they're always going to tell you something that's very wealthy in knowledge, because it's like, hey, don't do this. Like I went through this experience and I regret it. Like I regret making this decision, and I want to share this experience with you so you don't make the same mistakes as I do. And if you're open to those things, it's possible that you can navigate certain things that can happen in your life because you learned it from others, that you can completely navigate away from, that could have been horrible for your life, And it's like, I'm glad I didn't stay in this one job, and like I would have been miserable now. I would have known it. And it's like, I actually listened to these people that are like, hey, go do the things you want to do. Don't take this life for granted. Like, it is just one life. Like, go like do what you want to do. And when you like listen to, like, you learn that from listening to people. And when you actually perceive it and you realize that it's true, you can gain so much from it. So that's what's important, is like, there's even people, you talk to like homeless people, and it's like, don't ever do this. Like, don't, like, I made a mistake of like going out and partying too much. Like, it was fun at first, and like now I'm literally on the streets, and like I regret it, and it's like, you could gain something from what that person's saying, you can gain an experience that is basically them warning you to like, you could end up like me if you make the same decisions I do.
Yeah, totally. And, this applies not to just people that are older than you, but just people in general. Everybody has their own experience of the world. Everybody has their own specific, unique experience that they think is all of experience, because that is their experience. That is the only way in which they've perceived existence. And so people, like you said, that are older, that have experienced more of existence, they have experience to share with you. And a lot of it might be complete BS. And that's fine as well. Like, just because you're 80 doesn't mean that you have the answers to the world. Nope. And, you could talk to somebody that's, extremely elderly, and, they're racist and homophobic and sexist and transphobic and any phobic in the world. And you could think like, wow, this person literally has nothing but BS to spew. And, maybe they are filled with BS, but at least you can take that experience and think, I don't ever want to be like that when I'm 80. And I don't ever want to be like that when I'm old, because I want to be the person that is constantly checking myself and to not just get, like we said, just caught up in this one way of thinking, but that comes from thinking about other people's experience of the world, because we only have one, but we know that that's not the only one that ever exists, so it's okay to talk to those people. It doesn't mean you throw out all of it doesn't mean every single thing this person has ever said in this life is completely abhorrent and nothing is of value. No. But, you can't throw out everything anyway. I've said so much shit that I should never have said. And there's so many ways in which I've acted, which I don't want anybody to follow. And I hope if anybody has seen me in those, or that has experienced me in that way, I hope they learn that to never act that way. And that's okay. I try, and I'll continue to make those mistakes throughout my life, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that everything I ever say is completely, I hope at least, like, not everything I ever say is complete BS, and that none of it has any value, Yeah. And, I'm trying to be the person that gets to, if I hopefully get to old age and have the privilege of dying on a deathbed, like, I hope to be that person who's like who really paid attention and to really challenged my thoughts throughout my life in order to be somebody who's maintained a sense of progressiveness in order to leave something with the next generation, in order to not be the old man who's yelling at kids on the street because he forgot what it was like to be a teenager, Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too, is like, you can gain that, perception of things on any aspect. So like I said, if you meet, say you're a teenager and you meet an elderly couple, and they're like, they're just kind of like set in their ways, and they're like, we've lived in the same town our whole lives. We were high school lovers and we never moved. And like, in your teenage head, you looked at it, you're like, I never want to be like that. You're like that, and that could be the spark to motivate you to be like, as soon as I turn 18, I'm leaving this town, and it's like, that could be beneficial for you just because you're open to talk about them and like realize their experience of like, yeah, we just never really want to leave. We were happy and content where we lived. And you like look at that perspective, you're like, I don't agree with you at all. But you can obviously like be like respectful and be like I'm glad that you're happy and I'm glad that this is, the life that you want to live and the decision you made. But it's like that put it in perspective of like, I, for myself, never want that. You can gain that. You just gain something from that, realizing that's not what you want. And that's a beneficial thing too. It doesn't always have to be like, I agree with this person. I agree with this person. They have everything to say that's right. It's like, it could be complete opposite. It's like, from what they say, you're like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't like, I'm glad that I got to see the perspective. I'm glad I talked to them because I never want to go down that road,
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I completely agree. And I think that kind of comes with, I've always been, and this is something that I haven't really reflected on too much, but I've always been hesitant to put people like to have, and this might sound weird, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but I've always been hesitant to have a hero. And I've always thought about this since I was a kid. I was like, I don't want to have a hero because we're all flawed people. And like having a hero in my head always was like putting people too much on a pedestal. And, and I know that that's not necessarily what it means. And you could have heroes that, are within one specific domain. You're like, oh, like Martin Luther King, what a hero. Like, he did so much for civil rights, and right. It's like 100%. Like, I'm not going to take that away from anybody. I'm not going to take that away from MLK or anybody who venerates MLK. Right. But at the same time, like, Martin Luther King like cheated on his wife all the time, and I heard like had a lot of problems within his family or whatever. Like, I don't know all the ins and outs of MLK, but like to me, it's always like people are flawed inherently, and that's fine. And it's not necessarily that I'm not saying that people shouldn't have heroes or shouldn't want heroes. It's just the point being that we all have to admit that we're all flawed beings and that it's okay to, we take certain things from certain people and we shouldn't take certain things from the same people. Like it's okay to not agree with everybody. And I hope we don't, because if we just all of a sudden take the word of this one person for some religious saying, or some, we take the word from one person as God, then we run into some massive problems when we're just we're bringing these people up to such a degree where anything they say is completely inerrant, and that's a dangerous word, and that's a dangerous world, and that's how you end up with some dangerous situations.
Yeah, if you model yourself after quote unquote your hero, that's always going to be a dangerous thing. I think, like you said, and you kind of picked up on it, is like there's nothing wrong with having a hero and believing in something that they did great in the world that you believe. If they were like, oh, Neil Armstrong like survived fucking cancer, and did these marathons like crazy, like that's great. Yeah. It's like, I'm sure he had all this other baggage that like, maybe people know about, maybe people don't know about, but it's like if you model your entire life based off that person, that could be very dangerous. But if you take that like, belief or that motivation that person have and implement it into your own life, it's always going to be beneficial to you. So I think that's what's important. If we're going to talk about heroes, it's like, I agree completely. I think you need to take what they did good in life and apply it to your life, but not necessarily become that person, because that person could have been wrong on every other aspect, but it's like, if you just take that one great quality that they have and try to implement in your life, that can just make you one, a little bit better and a better person, Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It was Lance Armstrong, not Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong was the
man on
guy who walked man on the moon. Well, that guy too. He could be a hero.
Yeah, dude, be a space hero.
Yeah, Lance Armstrong. You're right.
My boy Lance. This guy, I've never thought about Lance. Cool. All right. Well, I kind of want to talk a little bit before we head out about music. I've been getting everybody to talk about music a little bit more. I want you to tell me what music means. how has music influenced your life? And we need some good music recommendations as well. So the floor is yours.
You want my music recommendations?
Yeah, I want your music. I want music recommendations and what music means to you.
Well, I'm definitely a big music person, so music is life.
Music is life, bro.
Music is life. I don't know. It's art. We could go hold down that aspect. I know that's a category of love, but I think it's a form of art. It's something that everybody can appreciate in any different aspects and different perceptions that you have of it. But it's art, and I feel like there's a beauty in that like everybody has a different taste in it. So for me, it's like it's a passion that only I can understand in my own way, and I think that's what's cool about it. I think it's a passion for me. Art, music is a passion, something that I can listen to whenever I want to, and I can go down any different road or any different song I want to listen to, or any different mood I'm into. I think it's having it makes me passionate about things. Music makes me passionate about like how I think of things, how I go about life, my mood. Like it changes your mood all the time. So
Yeah.
I would say the two words for music in the way I perceive it is that it's a passionate thing, and it's also a art piece in this world that we can all share in our own ways.
I think music, like you said, it might be one of the most influential pieces of something you can consume that influences. I don't know why I'm saying it so weird. It might be one of the most influential things that you could do that changes your mood, because like sometimes I'll just be walking down the street and like, I'm thinking one thing, and then a song comes on, I'm like completely different mood, completely. Yeah. And it's strange because it has such an influence on your life, and you don't realize it. Yeah. And especially when you listen to the same music all the time, and then you get stuck in the headspace. Like for me, like I'll be listening to like bedroom pop or like shoegaze, and it's like really sad, and it's like very slow, and then I'm listening to too much of this. Yeah. And like Dorsey, she's always listening to Radiohead, and I'm like Dorsey, I love Radiohead too. Like great music, beautiful music, but maybe we have to realize how much of an influence it does have when you wake up every day and you play Jigsaw pieces falling into place. Jigsaw falling into place. Sorry. Links below. Shout out to Radiohead. They're a little band.
They're little, yeah. No one knows.
But yeah, I think it's funny. Like to be like, hey, like we don't realize how much of an influence music does have on our. I mean, it creates a atmosphere. You especially like me, like now, like editing videos and stuff for like the podcast and doing like social media content for it. I'll make the video and play the audio clips from the podcast. And then that's one thing, but as soon as I add the type of music I'm looking for, it changes the entire feeling of the clip, It's a completely new experience once you add the music. So this is a shout out for anyone who hasn't followed me on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube.
Got your playlist on there?
Yeah. Follow my Instagram clips. But yeah, no. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So what is music's great. What are the recs? What are the recs? We got top 3 recs for John. It doesn't have to be your favorite. I just want
that's time being.
Just time being. You can look through your Spotify.
Okay, I'm looking through my Spotify. Okay. I know. I'm pretty sure you already have heard of them, but I don't know if you've heard of this specific song. I think I've told you about. Have you heard of Pirates? The Dead Pirates.
The Dead Pirates.
Yeah.
Maybe?
You,
No,
you,
I don't,
you know
that
what
doesn't ring a bell.
I guarantee you
Not
that
Smoko, right? Not Smoko.
Yeah. They,
Is it?
No.
Is that
No,
Smoko?
it's not. No,
Okay.
it's not. The Dead Pirates. Yeah, they're like an indie rock band, but
Okay.
they only came out with like 2 albums, so they don't really make music. But anyways, you
Okay.
probably heard of their popular song Ugo. It's UGO. It's the one that if you go on YouTube, it's like that like devilish cartoon, the Mick Best that I'm like obsessed with. That like cartoon like.
Oh, yes. Oh,
You know
yeah,
what I'm talking about?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
I do remember.
So
Their
song.
That's a good one.
Yeah, they're good. But if you go on YouTube and type in Wood, just
Wood.
WOOD, and I think it's by Mick Best, but it's actually by the Dead Pirates. Or I think maybe you can type it by Dead Pirates. There's a animation music video for it.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking fire, dude. I've been listening to it so much after work. It's just a vibe. It's got a great like little guitar riff in the middle of it. It's really good. So I recommend that.
Okay.
Wood by Dead Pirates. It's not on Spotify. You have to look it up on YouTube.
Bro, that's how you know it's underground right there.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why I don't have YouTube. That's my favorite song by them.
Or Spotify, you mean?
Yes, but no, it's on YouTube.
It's only on YouTube.
But yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Bro,
it's not on Spotify. It's
making my life hard for me, dude. I can't add it to my existence Spotify playlist that everyone's following, dude. Everybody's following. Everybody's talking about it.
Well, it's something you have to do in your own time.
Yeah, I'll link it. Its links are in the description.
Okay, and then have you heard of Slightly Stoopid? They're like a.
Have I heard of it? I live it, dude.
You've heard of them though, right?
No, I haven't
okay.
actually.
They're you probably heard some of their popular songs. They have they're like a ska, like they're kind of like Sublime. It's kind of like that music.
Okay, cool.
Anyways, Bandelero. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Bandelero
by Slightly Stoopid. Great fucking song. I just got into that. A third one.
Ska, huh? I've never been into ska. I mean,
Sublime.
Sublime. I like.
Ska. I like ska. I don't because ska is apparently ska is like what is that word for it? God, I can't think of the name. Like rockabilly, but with like a trumpet. And I don't think Slightly Stoopid has trumpets. But anyway,
yeah, ska is heavy on the trumpet, right? I mean,
or
Sublime.
Sax, I don't know.
Sublime. I don't know enough about ska to speak intelligently on it, but Sublime, I like only because I feel like I grew up in California, you know, and
yeah.
You have to like Sublime at least a little bit if you're going to, like, if you like Chili Peppers and like you have to like Sublime at least, you know, Santa Rita.
Yeah. But that's a good song. I'm not really into that music either, but that's a good song. It's also shouts out to like being in Colorado, talking about the ganja. So
the ganja,
you'll like that
dude.
one.
Yeah, I've never, bro.
You never touched children. This podcast. So
shout out to cannabis. Colorado's cannabis.
It's definitely a good song if you want to smoke the good stuff and listen to it. And then I would say my third one is Men at Work. Great old classic band.
Men at Work. Okay.
You don't know Men at Work? The one that does like the Down Under song? We came from a land down under.
I think I know. Yeah, I know that song. I just don't think about that song ever.
It's not that song. It's called It's a Mistake by Men at Work. Great song.
Okay. Men at Work.
Men at Work. It's called, and then the song is called It's a Mistake.
It's a Mistake. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So It's a Mistake, Bandelero by Slightly Stoopid, and Wood by Dead Pirates. These are all very different songs from each other, so don't listen to them in unison.
Okay. You're like, what kind of taste does this man have?
Yeah. Yeah, they're all very, very... One of them is like old classic rock. One of them is, like I said, ska, Sublime type music. And then another one is like indie, heavier rock.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Sick. Those are all linked. I'll give you 3 of mine. I'll give you 3 of mine. I never give out mine. Actually, I do sometimes, but
give me yours.
So we just watched.
Are these all on Spotify?
Yeah, because I'm not that underground, dude. I'm not that cool.
Yeah, right. We all know you are.
That's what my mom says.
Yeah.
And so we just watched Idols, the Idols set from the basement. It's such a cool. Do you know Idols?
I know of their popular songs.
Okay, dude, such a cool band. I gotta listen to them more.
Okay.
So cool.
What's the song?
I don't really know their songs, but I just watched the From the Basement set. I'm gonna get them. We watched it like 2 nights ago, and when we did, I was like, I gotta listen to more Idols. 'Cause I knew one of their songs. I only knew one of their songs.
I feel like I've heard of one of their songs.
Yeah, I knew. Which song do I know? Never Fight a Man with a Perm, and it's such a good song. Pretty heavy, but it's really good. But they have such an energy to them. They have like a powerful energy, like an aggressive, powerful energy to them, and it's really cool. So the Idol set From the Basement's on YouTube.
I do have a song. I was like, I know these people from somewhere. Model Village by Slow Tie. I have one downloaded. If you look up Model Village by them, that's the song that I know them by. And the music, do you watch the music video for it? It's so great. Me and Sadie watched it together. We're like, what is happening right now? Yeah, no, that's the one song I know by them, which is funny because I feel like it's not a very popular song by them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got to listen to them more because I listened to like one of their songs. I was like, oh, that's a good song, but I never thought about them until we saw they just happened to come up on YouTube one night, and I was like, oh, okay, this is sick.
Yeah, I don't listen to them either. I literally, like I said, that one song that I know by them. That's it.
Yeah. And then Men I Trust. They have a garage. Right. You like Men I Trust? Yeah, Men I Trust is so good.
Sadie listens to them every now and then.
Yeah, the garage session. Yeah, the garage sessions they have on their YouTube channel. Super good. Not just because the girl's pretty, and no. So that one's so good. It's like such a soft. Just she has a beautiful voice, and you could just tell. When people have like a good voice, it's just so nice to listen to.
Oh yeah.
And then, you know what though? Man, give
me one that's not like very low key. Like give me one that's
low key.
Not even one that. Yeah, not even one. Don't even give me one that you're like real. Like, oh, I really like that. Just give me something that was like, oh, this was different, and I kind of like vibe with it. That's the third song I want.
Okay.
That might be just like really from a random person, you know.
Okay. Oh man, it's
I know you have them.
Oh, I know I have them. It's just give me a second. I gotta look through Spotify. Don't worry, this will all be edited out. Oh man, just the problem is that I add so many songs all the time. I'm like, what song is I? Ralph Castelli's pretty good. Do you know Ralph Castelli?
No,
he's not like
never.
Okay, Ralph Castelli. Moonlight by Ralph Castelli.
Okay,
that's a good one. He's pretty popular. I remember I saw him on like. I had a song of his.
It does have like 100 million downloads.
Yeah, it's like pretty low key with 3 million monthly listeners.
I don't think I've ever heard of him.
Moonlight.
I have one song that I like. Oh no, I just did the Moonlight. Never mind.
I don't know. That's not like low key. That's a great song, but
okay.
I'm trying to.
I'll look that one up.
I'm trying to find one that's like.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Well, just because you haven't heard of it, John. What's that? Oh, yeah, I know. Okay, I'll probably do that one. Okay, so Ruby Haunt. Do you know Ruby Haunt?
I don't think so.
Little story behind Ruby Haunt. We're boys now. Me and Ruby. No, it's a band. It's like these guys. And they have, like, I would say Ruby Haunt make beautiful music. I love their music. It's like atmospheric, like melancholic, atmospheric, slow, almost like electronic, almost shoegazy kind of. It's really good. And they just had you listen to Audio Tree, right?
Oh,
Audio
yeah.
Tree. So they just had an audio tree session. And I was making a social like post. I was doing like a social media post, and I had it, and I messaged them on Instagram, and I was like, "Hey, is it cool if I use your song for this like clip?" And I sent them the clip, and they ended up getting back to me, and they're like, "Yeah, it's totally fine. Thanks for sharing it." And I was like, "Oh, sick! Like, thank you."
Cool.
And so I used the clip. You can look it up. For those who are listening, this is an excuse for you to look at the clip on TikTok.
It's like TikTok. I don't have TikTok.
Or Instagram. It's on Instagram too.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, I used, what was it? What was the song? What's that? Blue Hour? Yeah, there's Blue Hour by Ruby Hunt. Yeah, so really good. But Ruby Hunt's so good. I really love them. And they're so, like, if you want to be sad, listen to them. But it's really, I would say Ruby Hunt, hands down. One of my favorite, actually, some of my favorite, just like melancholic, sad songs are from Ruby Hunt. Super good. And if you want to check out their audio tree, go and do that. But
cool.
Yeah,
I was about to look it up, but I can't.
Don't worry, dude. It's all going to be linked in the podcast.
I'll link down below. Oh my goodness!
Don't worry, not for you, but for the listeners. Those dear, sweet listeners that I keep trying to get to follow my Instagram and TikTok.
They're out there.
They're out there, and there's going to be more racking up because this podcast is just piling up the good viewers, the good listeners.
Only the elite of elite listeners.
the elite listeners, the extreme elite listeners of this show.
Yeah.
It's some of the best listeners out there, I'd say, out of all the podcasts.
No, that's not biased or anything.
I would say my listeners are the best listeners. And look I know I said I could be wrong about a lot of things, but I'm not wrong about that.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyways, cool. Appreciate you talking, John. It's been a pleasure.
Let me know how the everything goes with the audio too.
Yeah, we'll see what it's just ass the entire time. It's like completely
Well, I think I found one good sentence that you said, and
yeah. It's right when you first started talking. It was like, that's all we got.
Yeah. Can you imagine right when it started? It's just immediately terrible, and you're like, well, damn it.
Just cut out it's good. Hey, thanks, John. Appreciate the conversation.
I mean, even if you don't put this up, you don't mind just doing like a test run.
Yeah, no, it should be. I'm curious to see how it's going to work. I've heard some really good results from the software I'm trying to use. So we'll see.
And I'm down to do this more often. I need to get back in my groove, and maybe I'll get a better setup. But I will, if this turned out good, I would like to do this more often.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, that's why I wanted to do it, is because I think it's important. I would like to do this maybe as because I really wanted to bonus episode. I told Dorsey, I really my goal is to it really would be sick to do 2 or 3 eventually 2 or 3 podcasts a week. Just so I don't, because I'm trying to do this not a weekly thing. I'm trying to really build it. So maybe what's that?
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying maybe I was thinking maybe we could do these once a week, and I could put this out as my second episode as a bonus episode or something, So we'll see.
The John and Evan show, the Evan and John show.
Yeah. People are going to be interested. We're a dynamic duo, dude. Everybody knows.
They're going to be I hate that guy. They're like, your podcast is cool, but you got to drop John.
No, dude, they're going to be oh, your podcast is cool, but you got to get rid of the host, dude. John, you need to. You got to get John. Can you host?
John needs to start a podcast.
Yes. They're I know this is your podcast, but Evan, please, for the love of God, put down the microphone.
I would really like to hear John's perspective on this now.
Yeah, stop talking. Yeah. So maybe maybe you're going to be a little too good.
Yeah. Gotta keep it down. Gotta keep the views down on mine.
No, realistically, they're going to be like, shut down this whole endeavor. Just shut it
that's
down.
What I said. I was like,
shut it down, boys.
They're like, you just really need to just keep to your own, Evan. Just and make sure you interview other people because you guys are just annoying.
There's like, maybe podcasting isn't your thing.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not where the route you should be headed down, Evan. My listeners are typing that.
Yeah. They're like, we really appreciate what you're doing. We really appreciate it. And we like the people that you're interviewing. But you yourself, you just gotta move on. Just gotta move on.
They're like, I only followed you on Instagram to tell you this. Please, for the love of God, stop putting this out. Hey, well, look at one new follower, one new comment.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, like a lot of comments on us. All the comments, just stop what you're doing.
Stop what you're doing, please. For the love of God, let the people who know how to talk speak. No, it's actually been cool because like
that's good
on all the, on like the stuff I've been posting, I'm getting some really, really good comments and
that's good.
You could look on the one I has with my interview with the psychedelic researchers.
Yeah,
I have it's my first video I uploaded on YouTube. Has like comments on all these comments on it. They're really supportive and even dude. On like so I'm really stoked about
like you
that.
said. I think the best thing you could be doing right now is doing cameos with a bunch of different people, even if they're smaller than you. Just keep interviewing other people.
Dude, I'm about as small as you can get right now. Dude. I'm at the bottom, but people are willing to collaborate. So I think that's the route I'm trying to just do as much collaboration as I possibly can. Anyways, other than that, let's try to do this again. Maybe next week, maybe next weekend or something.
That works for me. And like I said, dude, I may have like one more month. Well, probably once I'm in Maine, but like a month and a half. Well, about 2 months from now, I'll have like a lot more free time too. So I'll be a little bit more committed.
Cool. Dope. Cool. I'll let you know how this goes.
Dope noise, bro.
What magic
dope noise.
Dope noise. All right, cool. Bye. Love you, dude.
All right. Love you too, man.
Bye.
Bye.